Everybody introducing Jared Murray on guitar over there. Can y'all give him a hand for me? Jared's a sophomore. It took me a year into talking him into doing this, so I'm going to stay on you. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Oh, yeah, hamburger. Thank y'all so much for coming. This is the first event of our Hurricane Visiting Writer Series. And I can't ask for better because we got somebody brand new in town here. This is a brand new business. And the first thing she said was, I'll take all these readings. Just please, come on. And this is Virginia Spalter. If you haven't met her, she's awesome. And thank you for doing this. You're awesome, lady. Besides this, she's excited about this town and excited about being there and excited about y'all. Y'all patronize this place. She's wonderful. And thank y'all for being here. I also need to thank Donors Choose is where we got this paid for. And some folks in the community paid for that. There's people all over the place that did. And I wanted to say thank you a lot to them. And I'm required to do that so they can give me that cash. So just covered those bases. All right, so our first reader this evening, make sure I'm covering myself before I go on. Before I go on, I want to make sure y'all know about it. We're going to have 3 events. Our next 3 events are all in October. October 2nd, we're going to have Jim Owen here. Jim is a Flannery O'Connor scholar and has a book coming out on Flannery O'Connor. Will Garland from Jackson, Georgia will be here on October 14th. Will lives in Texas and is what I would call a southern writer. And on October 31st, Ann Height is a ghost storyteller, and she's going to be over at Reese Hall. And if you don't know about it, last year we had our first reading at Reese Hall, and it was a big, giant Halloween affair, and it was awesome. And Miss Hunsucker really jumped on the Halloween thing, and we're going to do that again. I hope y'all can make that. It should be a lot of fun. Now let me introduce our first reader. Our first reader I met last year when we started doing this thing in class we call Poetry Madness. And everybody, you're probably kind of familiar with March Madness, when you put a field of 64 to big brackets. Everybody sees that in March. Well, we put poems in all those brackets by different people, and we had our students read them sort of publicly, and we would vote on the winner, and they just kept, until we had one person win for each class. And I had this fella named Dalen, and Dalen brought in some poetry I'd never heard of before, and he was winning with it. And it was by some dude named Dumir. And so finally, we got some dude named Dumir to actually come in class and to read for us, and that's how I got to meet him last year. And I asked him a little bit a while ago, I said, so influences, what is it that really gets you writing? And he said, well, Dalen told me that if I didn't write poetry, he'd be better than me. And that's the influence that got him there. And what I say is, man, whatever gets you there, that's the most important thing. So Damir's going to come up and read a few poems for us. And so you guys, please put your hands together for Dumir Williams. Whatever you want, man. If you want to stand, prowl.
I'm just chill. How everybody doing today? All right, so I got these 3 poems that I'm going to read to y'all. Y'all want to come and see me? And so this first poem is called Burial Site, and I didn't have like a reason to write this. I just did it because I was feeling it at the moment. All right, Burial Site. You ever look to the sky and think about how big the world is? Someone could die with their spirit high in the stars, and at the same time, someone else could say, "Where did I park my car?" Like arriving at a burial site, every place that reminds you of a previous happiness has a low atmosphere. Because the inevitable always arrives. And soon, when you die, you'll be out of here. And somewhere, there are people who won't even notice. This next poem is called Anxiety. For those who have anxiety, y'all can really relate to this. I relate to this myself. I wrote this with my friend Jennifer. She told me how it feels for her when she gets a feeling of butterflies on her stomach when she does. So, also, when I do this, it's referring to like a heartbeat. Bum, 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 bum. They tell me not to worry, but I cannot close my eyes. Thump, 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 thump. There's voices all around me, and I couldn't tell you why. Thump, 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 thump. I feel like everyone hates me like I'm the bad guy. Thump, 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 thump. Sometimes I wish I was a bird so I could leave the scene and fly. Thump, 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 thump. Sometimes I don't want to be here at all. Sometimes I just want to die. That's that.
Gotta read loud or old people can't hear.
This last poem, Miss Nix came to me, and when she told me about Miss Ashley coming, she said, Dumir, I want you to write a poem about growing up as a black African American, growing up in America. So I did that. In this poem that I call We're All Ghetto Flowers. You look and see a man without pigment to his skin. You then whisper to yourself, what social group does he belong in? Because in America, that's what matters. Not your skills or talents define you. Because when they see you, they judge you. It's your skin color that binds you. In the country where I can do the same crime as a white man and get different sentences. I mean, think about it. America's supposed to be equal, isn't it? So for me, living in the country that discriminates against us because we are black, it's not easy. So I have a message for all other African Americans that live here. Watch your back.
Thank you, man. It really means a lot to us to have a student do this. So, and you to be the first one, man, it's great. I really appreciate you. Yeah, Damir's a sophomore, if you didn't know that. So he seems a lot older, to me anyway. That was great. So I want to talk about our topic a little bit. And I did a little research the last couple of weeks, and sent email after email to Ashley, telling her about all these things. I just felt like I'd discovered so much. All the topics we talk about aren't going to be pleasant. And some of them have to do with the past of this town. And I've done a little digging, and what I found out was that there's this thing out there called the Georgia Lynching Database that has a list of all the people who were lynched in Georgia that we actually have a record of. And you know, there's lots we don't have records of. And on that list, there are several names from Jasper County. And apparently there was a thing, the Jasper County way to lynch someone was to take them outside of town, hang them, and then shoot them full of bullets, like a ridiculous amount, just to destroy the body. And I just wanted to honor those people by reading off a list of folks that died here from 1815 to 1919. Eugene Hamilton, Dan Barber, Jesse Barber, Eula Barber, Charles Barber, Ella Barber, Charles Lawrence, Ella Charles, Lawrence Crawford, Ed Merriweather, Jack Glover, Lee Lawrence, and Jack Hawkins. It just felt like, I don't think people are saying those names too often, so I just wanted to get that out loud, you know. Another thing I learned about was the Jasper County Training School that ignorant. 15 years, we have a graduate. Awesome. For 15 years I've lived here, and this is the first year that I've looked it up and started learning about it. If I say something wrong, you just come on up here and take over. But from what I understand, this is, I got some information here I got out of the Monticello News. From 1930 to 1970 is where we had the Jasper County Training School. And it was an outstanding high school and elementary combined academic institutions as well as basketball and track schools in Middle Georgia.
You're correct.
Monticello became famously known throughout the eastern and middle Georgia regions for its almost unbeatable basketball team. Track and field were also ranked at the top of its class for its 100-meter dash sprinters and high jump. It's 100-yard back then. It was also ranked among the best African-American schools that graduated some of the top academically rated students in the state. This was true simply because they hired some of the best and most qualified black teachers in Georgia. And then from 60 to 65, the basketball teams were feared by every team school east of Atlanta they actually developed regional playing systems because this team was killing everybody. So they had to go, okay, cities aren't going to do it. We got to get whole regions to beat these guys. No other school within 50 miles of Monticello was willing to play the Monsters of Middle Georgia, as they became known. That's awesome. Lester Davis, I hear he's a name that I might ought to know about.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Lester Davis Jr. became the most famous coach of those teams, along with Andrew Thompson and Professor I.S. Glover in the early 50s. Those guys are responsible for coaching many such teams on a dirt court on Mason Street.
Yes.
And then the campus itself, there were classes in place for auto repair, food canning, homemaking, as well as farming. They were in place because some intelligent instructors realized, well, that all students could not, would not, or could not afford a college education, nor did some prefer to further education and skills beyond high school or join the military. But they'd still have the knowledge and skills to become productive citizens, and that's really what it's all about. So I just had to put that out there because I feel like it's important. I feel like I've learned something. It's kind of cool. Now, I want to introduce Ashley Jones. Ashley lives in Birmingham, teaches at the Alabama School for Fine Arts. I got that right. Okay, I had to think about it for a second. There's a list of awards that I didn't write any of them down because that's probably what is said about her a lot. So I'm not going to say those things this time. But I will say that she has two fabulous books, Dark Thing and Magic City Gospel, and go get them. They're awesome. They're great. It's great poetry. And so instead of those things, I just wanted to write down. I wrote down some words today as I was meeting Ashley, getting to know her a little bit better. And I also follow her on Facebook, and I get a load over there because she's not shy at all. So, I learned a lot before I met her. So just a few words I'd like to say. Ashley M. Jones, unabashed, proud, glowing with power and with beauty, self-confident, intelligent, thoughtful, compassionate, and aware. That last one, aware, which honestly I think she's helped make our students today a little bit more aware. Ladies and gentlemen, Ashley M. Jones.
Hello, Becklin. Wow, thank you for that really beautiful introduction. I told some people today I can't cry in public. I've trained myself to not be able to, but if I could, I would have cried. Thank y'all for coming. Thank you, Dumir, for reading. That was beautiful. Your poems were really wonderful. I really enjoyed hearing that. So I'm going to read some poems, obviously. And I'm going to start. Can y'all hear me in the back, too? I'm trying to project more? Okay. I will, and I'm sorry for y'all in the front. I'm just going to be yelling like that. I'm going to start the way that I like to usually start my readings, which is by invoking the spirits of Black women. Because for one, it makes me feel a lot more comfortable to know that my ancestors are around me. But also, I really feel like our spirits should be in every single room all the time, every single day. So I'm going to read a poem that I wrote where I reimagine the Virgin Mary as different women in my family who have all since passed on. And the reason that I did that is because I really love when deities are allowed to be Black. So often in our society, Black people don't get to see themselves elevated to the position of God. And in my family, that was always on the table. You can be whatever it is you want to be. You can even see yourself in God. And so this is Virgin Mary reimagined. As my paternal grandmother, head adorned in blue-gray curls, nestled in the gold wool of her easy chair. She cannot walk without help, ankles swollen with our pain, square, heavy glasses to magnify her God-stained eyes. As my cancer-stricken aunt, the light of her sick room, a silvery blue, her row of concave teeth shining in the shadow of the IV pole, full cheeks prevailing despite the tender sickness in her ovaries. Her string of breathy jokes defy the finite sound of her golden voice. As my maternal grandmother, her hands stained and cracking from the wash water, her shoulders sturdy yoked for rearing. She is a powerful shield for all her daughters, one's birthed and one's found. A psalm edges out of her small brown mouth, grace, whole and white in her overflowing smile, dotted with gold, precious teeth. As my blind aunt, the loud television in her blue-black bedroom, the sweets tucked like children in her cheeks. A cross of light gleams in her searching eyes. She answers our prayers in playing cards. Savior spade, king, queen, jack of our Jesus. As a mirror, our wombs, clean and soft and blue. Our eyes, the color of holy magic. We dream of the taste of our own merciful milk. It flows, whisper white, into God's open mouth. Okay, I feel much better. I was really nervous over there in my little seat, but I'm good. I'm calm. So I have read this poem a couple times already during the school day, so if any of the students out there have heard this already, I am so sorry you're hearing it again. But I wanted to read this poem about Sally Hemings because I'm in Monticello, not Virginia, but Georgia. And I just wanted to sort of bring her spirit into the room as well in another city that's named after the place where she lived. For those who don't know, Sally Hemings was Thomas Jefferson's slave. Often we are told that she was his mistress or his lover or his girlfriend, but that is impossible because as a slave, she could not give consent at all. So she couldn't say, oh, I love you, I want to be with you. She just followed orders. She was used as property. And so I wanted to write this poem to talk more about her life, to give her her humanness back, but to also highlight what happened to her children. What it means to say Sally Hemings. Bright girl Sally, mulatto Sally, well-dressed Sally, Sally with the pretty hair, Sally with the Irish cotton dress, Sally with the smallpox vaccine, Sally smelling of clean white soap, Sally never farmed a day in her life, available Sally, nursemaid Sally, Sally filled with milk, Sally gone to Paris with the master's daughter, Sally in the chamber with the president, Sally in the chamber with the president's brother, illiterate Sally, capable Sally, unmarried Sally, Sally, mother of Madison, Harriet, Beverly, Easton, Sally, mother of Easton who changed his name, Sally, mother of Easton Hemings Jefferson, Easton who made cabinets, Easton who made music, Easton who moved to Wisconsin, Easton whose children were Jeffersons, Easton who died a white man, grandmother Sally of the white Hemingses, infamous Sally, silent Sally, Sally kept at Monticello until Jefferson's death, Sally whose children were freed without her. The next piece that I would like to read is in a form called The Golden Shovel. And basically in that form, you take a poem that already exists and your poem, like the end words of your poem are the words of that other poem. Hopefully that makes a little sense. If y'all want to know more, you can ask me later. But the poem that I wanted to write with is my favorite poem called What the Mirror Said by Lucille Clifton, who is my favorite poet. And that poem is basically like a self-affirmation sort of poem, and I wanted to use it to write this piece because I needed a little help with dealing with this topic. This poem is about a story that my friend Tina, who actually visited with Luke's class like last year, Tina? Yeah, last year. She and her husband have been building this cabin in the woods in Blount County, Alabama. And they told me that when they first moved over there, one of their neighbors, in order to celebrate Martin Luther King Day, hung a noose on his house just to let everybody know how he felt about Martin Luther King. And so when I heard that story, I needed to get it on the page because it just was so horrific. So I wrote this poem sort of imagining confronting that noose. On Martin Luther King Day, a noose is hung on a tree in Blount County. Tonight, a noose drips from a branch like corn syrup. If you listen, you can hear it plunk and pull at the roots. You wonder if this is Blount County, if this is 2014, if this city is civilized, if you are a time machine of a woman, traveled back to this dim geography, when Alabama is pulpy, ready to pluck its own stale fruit. You are thirsty, so you listen for the sound of water. Your tongue is a map of desert, and suddenly there's just the noose and you, darkness rolling out in all directions, the stinging of so much quiet, a dust storm of silence. You think, maybe it's a joke, nothing to fear. Fear is what happens when you listen to too much CNN. The noose is still. It says, you are a woman. You are black. You are in the middle of no place, Alabama. And if I catch you, I will ring you till you're anonymous, till you're not even a black girl, you're just some damn body. Okay, so I'm from Birmingham, as I think Luke said, and we have a very interesting history, as you may know, especially as it surrounds civil rights. So I wanted to write a poem talking about maybe one of the most famous demonstrations during the Civil Rights era, which was the Children's March in 1963, when I think elementary through high school students marched through downtown Birmingham. They ended up at Kelly Ingram Park, and the Commissioner of Safety at the time, Bull Connor, famously called the fire department and the police to bring their hoses and their dogs to attack these children. So I wanted to write a poem about this event, and I wanted to give the children a different sort of voice. And this poem is written as a series of haiku, so each stanza is a haiku. Birmingham Fire and Rescue Haiku, 1963. What about us said we were on fire? What said extinguish quickly, fill up the hose and set the dogs loose? Could they smell our confusion, or was it our singing? Were our voices like sirens, a chorus of blood? We were wet black seeds in that raw Birmingham flesh. We germinated. Did the photos show our fingers stretching like roots? Did they show our eyes, how they reached sunward to the hot, bright, silent star that could turn water to steam, seeds to fruit? Did they see themselves become our fertilizer? Okay, switching books. Okay. So I get inspiration from pretty much anything. And so this poem actually came out of me watching the show Family Matters. Do you guys know this show with Steve Urkel? Yes. Some of the young people are not nodding. Well, it's a really good show. You should watch it. Anyway, I was watching the show just to kind of like relive my childhood, because the older I get, the more I'm like, oh, I just wish I could go back to when I was younger. And I'm only 29, but I'm already very nostalgic for the younger days. So I was watching that show, and there was a scene in like maybe the second episode where Harriet, the mom, and her sister Rachel are cleaning collard greens, and I had never seen that before. So I immediately paused the show because I was like, wait a minute, I've never seen such a like black moment on TV, especially in the 90s. Like, we just didn't really have people cleaning greens on TV. It was interesting to me. So I decided to write a sestina, which is a form of poetry about that moment, and I also weave in memories of my own mom and how she cooks collard greens. Harriet Winslow and Aunt Rachel clean collard greens on primetime television. In their dollhouse kitchen, they clean a bouquet of collards while the comedy of errors unfolds around them. Harriet in her pantsuit and that black mother smirk that signals the hard love only a mother can muster. This holy kitchen, culinary sanctuary, covers them in light. Its white glory a bouquet around their perfect hair. Their fingers know no errors as they pick and place the collards. There was an earthy magic in my mother cleaning collards. Their mineral scent, the sink full of water my mother plunged them into, the water which washed them of their errors, greens baptized, clean from sediment and rock, our kitchen sink her pulpit, the leafy bouquet her holy book. How we wished we could be them, touched by our mother's godly hands, then cleaned so well we forgot they were just collards. They glistened, a sparkling bouquet of dinner yet to come, so loved by our mother that even they forgot their natural bitterness. A kitchen is sweetened when collards are cooking. The air, a swelling pork fat perfume, the onions' pungent terror nulled by the ribboned greens. I loved to watch my mother cut them, roll the piles of flat foliage up like a cigar, the kitchen knife shining against a tight army of collards. We needed no superheroes when we had her, a mother to rival every black mom on cable. No fragrant bouquet could rival the smell of her greens and cornbread, the bouquet of cotton swabs and peroxide she'd used to sanitize our playground errors. She was a magician, more than just another mother. She could turn an afro into a constellation of braids, adorn them with a galaxy of beads. She could turn a sprawling batch of collards into a smooth and savory feast, a world exploding in her small kitchen. Someday, mother, I will inherit that sweet bouquet of cocoa butter, blue magic, kitchen smoke, and calm night air, the perfume of black motherhood. One day, I will learn how to cook them collards. Okay. Oh, I should have told you at the beginning, I'm reading 11 poems, so we're on number 6, I think. If you're counting down, I always love to know how many poems I'm in for. Even though I love poetry, I like to know what I'm up against. So 5 more to go after this one. So in this new book, I have a suite of poems about Harriet Tubman, who I probably don't have to introduce at all. I'm sure we all know Harriet Tubman. She was, of course, an American superhero. And in this book, I wanted to write a few poems about her to sort of give her a different kind of humanity, because so often with our heroes, especially when they're women of color, we strip them of all of their tenderness and softness. We just see them as strong, superhuman, creatures. And I wanted to give her back some of that humanity that I feel like sometimes we take away from her. So this poem, called The Book of Tubman, tells the story of how she started the Underground Railroad. The story goes that she was hit over the head with a piece of iron by her master, and that's when the visions came from God. And all you need to know is that her birth name was Araminta Ross, and she changed her name to Harriet when she ran away for the first time, which was her mother's name, so that she wouldn't be as easily tracked by the slave trackers. The Book of Tubman. And God said, "Let her head be split, a black melon, leaking. And God let iron sprout from the master's hand. And God breathed blood in the master's eyes and said, 'Strike.' And that's the story of the great crack in Harriet's skull that was an eye. That's the way God poured her, full of visions, thick as sap, unmoving, slowed as a scab over the gash. And God said, "Let there be Harriet." And Araminta went on to glory. Araminta could smile in heaven, hoist her skirts above her ankles, and dance. Harriet, on earth, kept that sweet eye fixed on the North Star, kept her pistol cocked, each bullet an unsaid prayer. And God made a railroad out of dirt and sweat, made a train out of a woman. And God made her hair a burning bush, her body so holy, even he called her Moses. Okay. So this next poem I wrote during the 2016 election cycle. I don't have to tell you guys what happened. Y'all were there, the result of that election. But I was thinking a lot about how people were so surprised that the person who is now our president could ever even be considered to be president. And I thought a lot about the founding of our country and how we often forget that the founding fathers also owned slaves, and that when they wrote those founding documents, they weren't thinking of people who looked like me or who were my gender as human or as equal to them at all. So in many ways, this country has never really been somewhere that wanted someone like me to feel welcome or equal. So I wanted to write a poem that sort of thought about that. And during this year, too, there were a lot of shootings of unarmed black people, and I thought about that a lot, too, and I sort of wove it into this poem using a phrase that we all know pretty well. Election year 2016, the motto. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We hold truth, men are created equal. That's self-evident. We, truth men, are self-evidently created equal. We hold these truths that men have created. It's self-evidently not equal. We who are not truth cannot be equal. Our race too self-evident. We held on for a truce between the self and its need for equality. Victory is not self-evident. We hold these truths. What more can the self hold? What evidence is there that we're equal? We held the truth, not guns, to be self-evident, but bullets and words are not equal. We held our lives like truth, but death was even truer, its tragic certainty self-evident. Okay. I'm making a decision here. I don't know if I should cut one. I don't know what time it is. Okay. Maybe we're good on time. I don't know. I'm fine. Okay. I always worry. I just don't want to take up too much time, like listening to people talk can be very tedious.
It's Monticello. We don't have a lot else to do.
Oh. Well, then I will read this one.
This is a highlight.
Okay, so this poem that I'm about to read is about Philando Castile, who I hope you guys have heard of. He was, I think he worked in the lunchroom at a school. He was just a regular guy, but he became famous because he was killed by a policeman at a traffic stop for really no reason at all. There's video of it. If you want to watch it, it's a little grisly to watch. But the person who killed him, Officer Geronimo Yanez, was acquitted of that murder. And the day that I heard that news, I was driving somewhere and I heard it, and it just kind of was sour in my mind and in my spirit, and I happened to drive past some roadkill. And this poem came out of that, because it kind of seemed like Philando's life was thought of just as we might think of like a raccoon on the side of the road. I see a smear of animal on the road and mistake it for Philando Castile. Don't need lawyers when you split a body in two on the highway. Don't need courtrooms and the judge's billowing robe, its filthy swaddling cloth. What handcuffs exist for an accidental animal killing? What law says a tire can't push a soft seam open between rubber and tar? What law says a man can't bleed like a possum, a greedy raccoon in his own car? What law says stop? When the jurors finished the meal they'd made of him, fillet of buck, they wiped their seeping gums with napkins, burped, and swore they smelled something burning, perhaps a laughing gun. Okay. We're getting close, y'all. We're getting very close to the end. We are on our last 3 poems. This one that I'm about to read is about my grandmother, Willie Lee Lipscomb, who passed away in 2017. And I remember sitting at her house on the day of her funeral, and I didn't even really realize she wasn't there because the chair that she usually sat in was empty, but I could still kind of feel her spirit in the house. So I started to write a poem on a napkin, and I saved the napkin. It's in her memory box right now, but this is the poem that came out of that day. And it changes voice in the middle. It goes from me to her imagined voice, and then back to me. Red Dirt Suite. 1. In your house, grandmother, even the furniture smiles. The grainy glow of the red dirt in piles and hills outside the window warms us, eyes first. The quiet streets whisper your love as we drive through them. The clouds puff up with your buoyant cackle. Here today, grandmother, I didn't even realize you were missing from your chair. Somehow your body never was what brought us to you. I see so clearly the shadow of your spirit floating between my own 2 hands. I will drink it in like sweet tea. Let your sugar linger, spread. 2. I've been working my whole life. We was out in them fields, working. All there was were crops as far as anyone could see. Even our dreams lined up in rows. The chickens came and went at the factory. Take one leg, hang it, take the other, and like a flag, like a banner, like my own 2 arms spread wide, they're ready for the slaughter. Like us, they know this work well. They do it because they must. My children need feeding, and chickens will have to do. The school lunchroom will have to do. The white people's houses will have to do. 3. I was born in starry Alabama. The night mixed me up a blue so sweet I swallowed it whole. The day swirled its clouds into a song, my lullaby, God's clear voice as I slid into this world. Girl, I take my love and shape your body around it. I give you my heart to borrow. 86 years later, he will call on me again. He will slide from his crystal cocoon and find me smiling. He will find me searching my own mind for him. 4. The cars line up in the yard. We come from all corners for you. We, your harvest, will travel from anywhere to send you home. The cars line up in the yard. Without you here to tell us, we must ask our own family who they are. Without you, we talk around ourselves to find you. Even our hellos sound like your name. How you doing, Willie Lee? How you been, Willie Lee, Willie Lee, Willie Lee? Okay, we only have 2 left. I wanted to give y'all a choice on the penultimate poem, so I brought a few up here, and I'll just read the titles, and y'all can decide which one I should read. Okay, so we have Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane, number 106, or Summer Vacation in the Subjunctive, or Love Note, Shirley, or Home Security, or Poem in which I am too political to read at your school. Okay. Can you get, if you want to, I mean, it's up to y'all. It's y'all's time. So out of those, I guess, should we do hands? Like, I don't know how to do this, actually. I don't know. Anybody for Superman? Anyone? Okay, there's okay, I feel like there was some strong feelings for the too political to reach your school poem. Okay, I'll do both of them. And then we'll finish and I will get off the stage. Okay, so I will start with the Superman poem because it's like fun and, well, actually that's a lie. It's fun, but it also isn't. So Superman obviously had a comic book series, and there was also a series for his girlfriend Lois Lane. In number 106, Lois Lane becomes black for a day by stepping into a transformation chamber. And she does this because she really wants to win a Pulitzer Prize for uncovering the gritty underbelly of Little Africa. And it's a really weird issue. She's very tone deaf to the black people's issues. And I encourage you to read it. It's online. You can look for it online. And so I wrote this poem for my friend who collects comic books, and he actually showed me this issue. And it was his birthday, and so I wrote this poem using the words from the actual comic book. I only added maybe 2 or 3 words to the poem. Everything else is from the comic book itself. And if you read it, all the words are chronological. And I just kind of arranged them in my own way. Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane, number 106. On this daily planet, my life is good luck. All supermen at my service. I should get the Pulitzer Prize on the backs of Metropolis's black community. Wait, tenements perplex me. How can I break through this plague, their suspicious speech, these slick-mouthed babies and their knock-slam slang? Homeless ghosts on this daily planet. What is the reason for their weary report? Look how the sun shines sweet and pretty on their rat-infested slums. It's okay. I'm right. I'm whitey, never forget. Little Africa is dejected, a neighborhood of frustration. I'll step into this machine and transform, a startling switch. Black for a day only, the hum-zoom of the world staring, the smoke of white fragility, its gloomy fire trap. Black is beautiful. Have you met it before, reporter? The eternal struggle of life against death by darkness. A life of please, look me straight in the eye. The constant confrontation of being black and alive in a white man's world. A universal outsider, so alien, even Superman couldn't risk loving you. Okay, now we're at the last 2, home stretch. This poem also has a story. Every poem I write has a story. But with this one, I was asked to read at a school in Birmingham, and I said yes, that I would do it. And I guess the woman who invited me didn't look me up first, which I don't say in a conceited way. I think she literally didn't know who I was. And so she emailed me back after I emailed to say, okay, can I get some specifics? And she said, oh, I think your work is a little too political for our students. So she uninvited me, being very, very sweet about it, oh, I would never want to offend you, all the while offending me in her email. And so I thought, too political. So maybe I'll write a poem that is totally unpolitical. So I wrote a Shakespearean sonnet that is totally normal until it's not, and I think you'll be able to tell when it shifts. Okay. Poem in which I am too political to read at your school. A rose, single, silent, and soft, opens. red petals tender, innocent, fragrant. What beauty, how holy, peace unbroken in the rose's solid stem. O ancient wonder, rose of unsullied joy, I sing to the majesty of your sun-loved face. Your color so pure, petal fine as wing, leaf's thin veins a natural puzzle of lace. Even your thorns are worthy of my praise, their spikes but soldiers keeping you from harm. A stab could set my fingers all ablaze, but still your grace would silence all alarm. Except the rose was black, and you killed it. Black, and you silenced it. Black, and you raped it. Black, and it could not vote. Black, and it got in the wrong garden, so you had to use pesticide. Had to poison its water and all the little black rose babies. Had to stop teaching it to read. It was black, so you pulled it up by the roots with a knife shaped just like America, just like the government, just like white Jesus, just like your mouth leaking, bless your heart. You severed its roots, and you chewed them whole, and you smiled as it withered, searching for home. Okay, last one. Thank y'all for listening. Y'all have been really attentive and patient. This is my last piece that I'm going to read, and I wrote it because a few months ago I was, doing my normal thing, driving here and there, and I kept seeing tow trucks like in front of me, and it was weird because I never noticed that they have this crossbar on the back, and it started to freak me out because like every time I got on the road, a tow truck would just be right there, and the cross was just like staring at me, and so I thought, okay, God, are you like telling me something? I wasn't sure, so I decided to take it to the page, and the poem looks like this. It's modeled after a poem by Mary Zybist, maybe is how you say her name, and you can read it in a circle. I'm going to show y'all in a second. You can read it in a circle, and you can start anywhere, but I'm going to start where I want it to start. This is the poem. No, this is in nothing yet. Oh, cool. And it's called Hymn of Our Jesus and the Holy Tow Truck. Is it that easy, God, to be pulled, or maybe to follow, as if a car, half crushed on the back of a tow truck? And incidentally, Lord, is that you I see flexed on the crossbar of a rusty wrecker on its way to the east side of Birmingham, which is like Eden, growing holy fruit? My mother, the summer plot of peach, my father, the strong tomato, its unbending vine. Did you teach them to grow in this way, in the sweat of Alabama, strong as the dying crow, its blood-hardened wing straight as a crucifix, pointing always, easily, stubbornly, straight up, pious as a bone, toward you? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Big thank you to her again, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. It's very exciting to see so many people in here. The Art Box just officially has been open for a month. We have some great events coming up. This is, thank you, Ashley, for kicking it off for us, and Jared for playing your beautiful music, and Dumir for starting the night out with the words that you had in your heart to say to everybody. I do have some information for you if you'd like to pick something up so you can see what's going on. The next event is on Tuesday. If you know Linda Aldridge, she's a wonderful, very prolific artist, and we're having conversations with Linda on Tuesday along with lunch. We still have time to sign up if anybody's interested in it. She's written a book and is working on her second, so you'll hear a little bit about how that's going. So thank you so much for coming in. If you want to hear additional information, please sign up for emails, and I'll send them out. I'll send them out as soon as I get them ready for you, okay? Thank you. And please eat something before you go and have some water.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.